How do you become the culture shifter in your organization? This week, we have Mark Groves. He is author, speaker, and human behavior specialist talking about human systems as a nervous system and how your own personal regulation can affect the regulation of a group to help with performance and achieving what you want to achieve. You're going to want to check this out. Hey, it's Adam here, and you're watching The Culture Hack, where we're talking about how to create engaged workspaces that unlock the potential of your teams and drive your business forward in ways you've never seen. So stay tuned. Mark Groves, welcome to The Culture Hack. Thanks for coming on down here.
Happy to be here.
I'm pretty excited. We've had such a fascinating conversation. If you missed the previous episodes, we talked about finding courage and taking leaps, your internal resistance to change, your own nervous system and what role that plays. And we just kind of touched on last time on getting into groups of people and how change affects them and that kind of thing. So we talked about, the struggles one has internally when trying to change yourself or taking a leap. What effect does that have on the people around you, especially those closest to you?
Well, I think everyone's probably experienced this where you desire a change, you go to change, and then when you bring that change to the world, to your relationships, to your family, whatever it might be, it's not always met with positive orientation. I would say it often isn't. And we talked about in the first episode how that can make us then retreat and go back to the way things were.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I was saying in that first episode that often what happens is we'll take on a role in a team that's similar to the role we had in the family. And so we don't often think about this, right? Because, of course, our workplace isn't like, wait, what was your family system like?
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to, but I think it's important for people to understand that their natural predisposition in a human system, which is any group of two or more, is to actually go into what's familiar and unconscious usually. And so if I was like the people pleaser, taking care of everybody, I might go naturally into a role, even a job, that actually facilitates that. And when we start to shift, the system is forced to shift. So if all of a sudden, let's say the way I operated as a kid is I was quiet. I didn't share how I truly felt because it wasn't, let's say, safe to really express myself, to have an opinion, a thought. Maybe the parents were so busy that there was no space anyways. Like if I said something, no one around, or everyone's too busy or overwhelmed, whatever it is. When I start to use my voice, the system is not used to my voice. So the system, and this is true of all systems, will generally push back on the shift because the system knows how to work efficiently. So if you're someone who's silent on a team and all of a sudden you got opinions and boundaries, and before you've been working hours that maybe were not appropriate to your work, and you're accepting emails at 1 a.m, and you're like, they're waking you up, which why is your phone on? But that's a whole other, but it's like, you're so used to always being available and now you're not. The system will say, why are you not? What's changing about you? Now, often when we step into something that's more oriented to us, like protecting our time, using our voice, someone will say, oh, that's very selfish of you. Like, what's going on with you? It's like when someone says, it seems like you've changed. It's actually good because you have changed. But because the force of belonging is so powerful, we will often not want to disrupt the system. I think a lot of what people do relationally until they wake up about it, and true in workplaces, is they adapt to the system. But a true leader, especially people in leadership positions, are who they are. And of course, they're mindful of how they operate. And the system adapts to them. And so when someone truly values boundaries, they'll value the boundaries of others. When someone truly values self-expression and psychological safety, they'll co-create that with other people. And when someone really steps into their own desires, needs, values, and of course, a system generally has shared agreements, often unspoken, about what are our shared values? How do we handle conflict? How do we not? Stan Tatkin, who's a psychologist who talks about marriage and relationships, says that the reason that marriages tend to fail is because they fail to create clear agreements at the start. Talk about an overlap to business, right?
Project 101.
Right. So it's like the nervous system of a business operates off, it's a shared collective nervous system. but it tends to operate off the leader. So if the leader is dysregulated or the manager is dysregulated, you'll see that in the team.
Mm.
And so this doesn't mean that it's a problem if you get dysregulated, because that's often people are like, I just need to be zen all the time. No, activation of your nervous system is imperative to escape things, to like stand up for yourself, right? So it's not about always being regulated. It's about being flexible. And when you have a dysregulated person operating a system, which can be a family too, the whole system is thrown off. Now, the beautiful thing is when you have a regulated person, the whole system can start to find stasis. And, and some people refer to that as like mirror neurons, but also that we actually experience co-regulation. So a kid doesn't regulate its own nervous system till about 3. It doesn't know how to. And so it learns, or he or she learns how to regulate from the parent. So that's the bouncing, that's the shh, shh, shh.
Yeah.
That's me regulating. Now, as an adult, you can learn how to regulate yourself actually just by like, this is called bilateral stimulation. So you can do stuff like this. Breathing really works. Hands on your body can help with regulation. Things like, I know it's all the rage, cold plunging, cold showers.
Right.
They can teach you how to regulate your system. So your body's going, you're going to die. And then you can be like, well, I'm actually not going to. I'm just really cold. And so you're starting to observe the way your body feels instead of responding to how you feel. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I really it resonates, especially things like work, right? We tend to just work harder. Things aren't working, things are chaotic, so we just push harder. We keep running through the same rut. We keep going and going and going, not really realizing that maybe we're dysregulated and the whole system is. And depending on my level of influence in that system, I could be either the source or a big part of it or whatever. So I do see and hear a lot of resistance, things like, well, you should start like cold plunging or you should do breathing or you do whatever. But I think what you're saying is that the science tells us that like if you need to elevate yourself and start regulating to get yourself out of that rut, so you're not just running on the treadmill, right?
Right.
That you need to do something. You need to mix it up a little bit. You need to pay attention to what your body is telling you so that you can elevate to a place where you can actually interact with the system in a positive way and settle it down and then achieve what you want to achieve.
Well, yeah, if you're always grinding, always working out, it's the same activation. So you're just stuck in a fight flight state. So the opposite would be actually not doing something. Not now. Imagine the beliefs that come up and the
not doing something is way harder than doing, especially if
you're a perfectionist,
Yeah.
right? Because the whole trick of that perfectionism is that the trick is that you'll never actually ever achieve it, because if you achieved it, you get to rest. But what drives most people till it doesn't is some sort of deficit. And you see a lot of entrepreneurs and business people, it could be any job, where they actually derive their motivation from inadequacy. So by becoming more successful, more whatever, they are trying to achieve some sort of destination where they'll finally be enough. Now, what happens with people who are motivated that way, which is a lot of people till it's not, is that actually healing the wound of unworthiness is hard for them to do because they don't know how to create not from that. Like, who will I be? How will I source motivation? It's like the coping strategies for people operating from a wound tend to be things like alcohol or drugs or something like that. Doesn't mean gym can't be an obsession too. It can. Anything done in excess, of course, is harmful. But what happens is the motivation or the coping mechanisms become different when, one, you recognize that you've been operating from a perception of deficit to, oh, wait, I'm actually creating because I'm passionately connected to this thing. And then our coping strategies become things like meditation, right? Like family dinner, like things that really allow us to calm. And I know how powerful, motivation can be, meditation can be. But you'll often hear someone who has a spinning, ruminating mind, like, I just don't have time. And I remember hearing, I think it was Danielle Laporte say, well, if you don't have 10 minutes, you need 2 hours. Like this idea, like a silent mind is one that's been listened to. And I think for all of us, there's that cliche saying that the longest journey is from the head to the heart. And it's not because it's literally a long journey. It's because to descend back into one's body is to descend back into being connected to your heart, your intuition, your gut, your nervous system, being regulated. So a lot of us spend a lot of time up here, and actually turning this off or giving it more space allows you to hear a voice that's much deeper, in my opinion.
I heard a great quote talking about time management. It made me think about people that are constantly so busy but never seem to get anywhere.
Yeah.
And I said, there's no such thing as a time management problem. What you have is a time confusion problem. You don't know where you're going, so you fill your life with busy stuff.
Yeah.
And you just run in circles and exhaust yourself. And I just thought that was kind of profound. And that when you talk about meditation, when you talk about a team that says, we're too busy to meet for 5 minutes every morning and like ground and connect. There's an irony to that.
Right. I don't have time.
Right?
Wait, what?
Exactly. Well, do you want to take 5 minutes and save 2 hours?
Right.
And meditation, I think, in my experience, there's a lot of false beliefs about it. Like, I'm supposed to sit here and my mind has to be perfectly clear and it needs to be this long and it needs to be that. But, meditation, it can be so many things. It could be 2 minutes. It could be while you're driving. It could be walking your dog and just being super present with what you see, smell, and feel, right? Like, it doesn't have to be this like formal, crazy thing.
No, I think it's just being with the world. And it's so easy to not be. My son the other day, we were at the park, and my wife, I was texting her just to let her know that we were going to be coming home soon. And he took my phone, because I don't use my phone often around him, just because I really want him to know that he's always more important than that. And he took my phone out of my hand and said no and threw it on the ground. And I was like, wow, he already knows. Like, he already knows that not that technology is not a beautiful thing, of course, but he already knows that it can capture dad's attention when he really wants dad's attention. And I could say, oh, I had a positive intent. I was texting his mom, blah, blah. Okay, that's fine. But at the end of the day, I think a lot of us don't realize how much in a world that is really commoditizing our attention, how much our attention has been commoditized. And I believe that the greatest act of rebellion at this moment in time, revolution, is to claim where your attention goes.
Interesting. Well, let's talk about that in detail. I wouldn't mind getting into the metaphysical a little bit on the final episode here. But if someone wants to follow you on Instagram or kind of loves what you're saying, how do they get in touch with you?
Yeah, so all my romantic relationship focused work is on Create the Love on Instagram. You can go to createthelove.com. I have a community where you can get courses, all that kind of stuff. And then my personal stuff is at It's Mark Groves on Instagram and also markgroves.com.
Okay, fantastic. Well,
Thanks.
stay tuned. Hey, thanks for watching The Culture Hack. Do you want to chat culture and engagement? Give us a call and come on the show.